Well, so I've been driving around the Tata Tigor in office for about 4 months now, and we got it at the beginning of the winters, and now winters are almost about to end here in Delhi. And I have to say that it has been an enjoyable time with the Tigor. It is impressive on almost every front. In fact, it is a very impressive car on more fronts than one. Now, the first impressions are the lasting impressions. That's what they say about everything in life, and your first impression of the Tigor will really leave you impressed. As soon as you enter the cabin and sit on these seats, you will be thoroughly impressed with the comfort that they have. In fact, these seats feel like the armchair-like sofas that you have at home, and they really are sumptuous in terms of cushioning. Tata Motors has cut no costs in terms of the cushioning as well as the support that the front seats have to offer. And support for tall adults like me is very good for the under thighs. Support for the lower back is spot on, and you also get these very small bolsters over here. So if you are someone who will be pushing his car into corners when you drive up to Shimla, you will be nicely, snugly fitting into the seats because these seats have these bolsters. Overall, the seats on the Tata Tigor are the best in the business and definitely the best in this segment. They're definitely ahead of the Maruti Suzuki Dzire as well as the Hyundai Accent and Honda Amaze in this segment. What you will also be impressed by on the Tigor is the ride comfort on this car. Yes, the suspension setup is phenomenal, and if you are someone who does a lot of highway travel, you will really appreciate the stability as well as the cushiony ride that this car has to offer. Yes, this car does soak in all those bumps very well. In fact, it feels like you're riding a much bigger car than the wheelbase of the Tigor suggests, and it really does feel like a very comfortable and a very pliant suspension setup. And as I just said, this car suspension will soak in all those bumps. What you'll also like is the excellent fuel efficiency. We've been getting figures in excess of 18-19 kpl on a very regular basis driving this car in the city. On the highway, it has delivered around 20 kpl on a very regular basis, so that is also something which is highly commendable. And other areas where this car could be improved, well, definitely yes. The biggest area is this touchscreen over here. Now, the stereo system is phenomenal in terms of the sound quality. It is a Harman system, but this touchscreen could have been bigger, and the fonts also and the overall design feels like it is about 5 or 6 or 10 years old. It does feel like a bit of an outdated design in terms of the fonts, and the size also could have been bigger. So that's something that Tata Motors can improve and work on. But otherwise, the stereo quality as well as the speaker quality is absolutely top rate and probably the best in this segment. What you'll also like about the Tigor if you drive it in the city is the light steering wheel, but that does not mean that it is devoid of feel. It has decent feel and good feedback. And if you drive a lot in the city, you'll also like these big and chunky rear view mirrors, because these mirrors have got a very good view of depth when you're seeing things behind, and there aren't any blind spots in this. The visibility from the thick A-pillar also is decent, and rear visibility also is quite okay. The overall insulation of this cabin is absolutely spot on. There is no wind noise, there's no tire noise, and there's very little engine noise which enters the cabin. This is the diesel version that we've been driving, and even then the engine noise has been well contained and is always under control. Well, most buyers will also appreciate the fact that this car feels very, very rock solid. So if you are someone who travels a lot with his family, you will really appreciate the fact. And especially when you shut the doors, they have a very nice and solid thud sound about themselves. So that's something that you will really appreciate. It has that sense of authority about itself, about safety when you shut these doors. And as I just said, that is something that most people will really appreciate about the Tigor. You'll also appreciate the big and chunky boot. And I'll just stop the car now and show you what is so good about the boot and why I think it is probably the most attention to detail that Tata Motors has given on any car, and that attention to detail is found in the boot. Well, one area where Tata Motors has given great attention to detail on the Tigor is in the boot department. Now, this car comes with these gas-filled struts, unlike its rival which have those traditional latches. And remember, those latches which are over here do eat up into a lot of boot space. And you'll also remember that if you place those big boxes or those big suitcase pieces and decide to close this boot lid, then those latches do enter that area and don't really allow the boot to be closed. So that's an area where Tata Motors has paid great attention to and given you these gas-filled struts, because they allow this boot to be closed even when you fill it up over here. And what that also means is that this car's boot is the biggest in the segment and genuinely can accommodate what Tata Motors claims, and they claim a very big figure of 490 litres. It's a big boot, it's a square and boxy boot, and it's a boot which will easily take your mother-in-law back to the airport in. So overall, a great boot for those airport transfers. Another area where the Tigor will truly impress you, apart from the brilliant sound system, is in the aircon department. Yes, even though we got this car when the winters was starting to set into Delhi, we still had a couple of days where the temperatures touched about 35-36 degrees, and the aircon on this car really chilled the cabin very fast. The throw of air is spectacular, and even though it doesn't have rare AC vents, people at the back will not complain because the throw of air from the front is pretty good, and occupants at the back also do get chilled really fast. So for air conditioning, for a brilliant stereo, as well as for a light steering wheel, clutch and gearbox, this car is great, and that makes it a great car for people who drive a lot in the city. And what also makes it a great car is that excellent boot at the back and that excellent ride comfort. When you take this car out on the highway, this car has solid stability, and as I just said, the Tigor is probably the best all-rounder out there in the market. Yes, some other cars might be better in terms of looks, some cars might be better in terms of overall equipment, and some cars might be better in terms of overall driving dynamics, but as an overall package, it really is hard to build a case against the Tata Tigor. Yes, overall, I have really enjoyed my time with the Tata Tigor, and I have to say that it is a very good all-round package. It's great for people who drive in the city because it has a light steering wheel, light clutch and light gearbox. It's also very good for highway usage because it is very stable, and it's also pretty good for comfort because the seats are really generous in terms of cushioning. And as I said, it's very hard to build a case against the Tata Tigor diesel. And some cars might be better in terms of looks, some cars might be better in terms of overall styling, some cars might be better in terms of driving dynamics, but as a package, the Tigor really does tick all the right boxes, and it really does do everything very well. There's hardly anything that it does badly. In fact, there's nothing that I can think of that makes it a deal breaker. This is a great car for people who are planning to buy an entry-level compact sedan, and you should definitely go ahead and check it out at a Tata dealership near you, and you will not be disappointed.